Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's midday weather outlook for the southern region brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. Well, probably the most important development over the last 24 hours is the tropical convection that you can see down there in the bottom right-hand side of your screen. That is now tropical depression number 9 or potential tropical cyclone number 9. I think later on this morning they'll probably upgrade this to a tropical depression. We need to be watching where this particular system goes because it is an area of quite organized convective activity, and there's a lot of things influencing the flow of this, but some important developments over the last 24 hours, which we hinted at yesterday in our update that came out early in the morning on Thursday. Outside of that, a large low pressure system you can clearly see moving through the north central plains, getting into the Great Lakes states, and it did bring last night quite a bit of heavy rainfall into parts of Texas and Oklahoma, some big storms rolling through there. We'll take a look at the current position of those and what we're expecting out of those over the next 24 hours or so. Meanwhile, much of the rest of the southern region had a relatively uneventful day, just some hit or miss showers and storms. You can see the Carolinas lighting up there early with some stronger storms as well, and some of those pressed into the overnight hours. Okay, so let's get right into this tropical system. This is the latest update as of 5 a.m. Eastern time this morning here from the National Hurricane Center. So again, they're still calling it potential tropical cyclone 9, but they are forecasting it later today to become a tropical depression. And you can see by the demarcation of the S's inside of each one of those, inside the cone there of uncertainty, they've put this down as a tropical storm in status. Now, I'll be honest with you. At this point, there are a few things working against this system becoming a hurricane. It would be called Umberto if it did. But I think some people down here in parts of Florida, Georgia, North and South Carolina are getting a little bit of a flashback here to Dorian, at least on the projected potential path here. Certainly some problematic weather for the Bahamas, although not a hurricane forecast at this time. Anything other than clear blue skies is going to be rough for the cleanup effort, and we're expecting a lot of shower and thunderstorm activity out of this as it moves forward. So I want to turn right to the European model because honestly, if you remember, I said the GFS wanted to take this system and run it across Florida and bring it up here into Louisiana eventually, but the European model had a much different scenario, and it seems as though the global models are kind of bending toward what the European model has been saying all along. So there are a few things that are influencing this, and one of the bigger factors right now, I'm going to try to draw this so that we can see it. There's a high pressure center that's sitting right in through here initially, and the flow around that high pressure center is like this. So this is what's going to help draw what could potentially be named Tropical Storm Umberto toward the north and toward the Florida coastline. But with time, this high pressure center is anticipated to, or at least forecast to slide a bit farther to the south and east. And if it does move here, what this does is just changes the circulation. So you can see it's a weak high, but if it does move over into this area, we're then going to help steer this hurricane, hopefully along the coast, but away from the coast, and get it out there and keep it out there at open ocean. At the same time, there's another ridge that's building, a much more broader ridge that's building here, and a trough feature that comes in between. So all three of these factors, mainly the high that I just drew for you here and this trough, are what I'm hoping to have keep this system away from the U.S. coastline. A couple of things it's got to work against. When Dorian went through, it certainly cooled off the water in this area. This is what hurricanes do. They churn up a lot of cooler water from below, and they extract heat from the ocean surface. And that's certainly what we can see here. So this is the cold water trail from Dorian. But I just want to make another point here. The water temperatures in this area are still plenty warm enough to be developing a hurricane. And remember, this is the Gulf Stream, so we could very quickly, as the Gulf Stream meanders, something like that, we could very quickly bring those temperatures back up out ahead of this next potential system that's developing here. It does have a bit of wind shear to contend with, although this environment is not entirely unfavorable with the system currently sitting right in this area. It is moving toward an area where over the next 5 days or so, we see above average wind shear in and around this vicinity. It's not the kind of shear that can completely disrupt it, which is why we are all anticipating this becoming at least tropical storm status. And I'm just going to throw out a caveat here to some of these forecasts. I know you saw the National Hurricane Center keeping it tropical storm status, but should the steering currents become weak and the storm system is allowed to sit here for a little while, there is the potential for this to intensify to hurricane status. And to be honest, even though you saw the European ensembles wanting to yank this way out to open ocean, that's dependent on a lot of factors, one of which is the trough that's sweeping through, carrying it in that direction. There is the potential that this system could linger in this area under some weaker steering current in the longer term. And I'll be honest with you, it's too far out and too many variables for us to be certain about its eventual path. But in Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina, we do need to be looking out for some gusty winds again and the potential for some heavy rain. And just to let you know, behind this, we still have two other systems to be watching. The National Hurricane Center upgraded this one to a 40% probability of forming. And what I'm most concerned about this is as it gets over into this same area, does it follow that same trajectory? We'll take a look at one model outcome here in a few minutes. But it's that time of year that, given how warm the Caribbean, especially the Gulf of Mexico is, should a system get into the Gulf, it is going to have plenty to work with in terms of energy coming from the ocean to continue to intensify. Now, early this morning, we were still seeing that frontal boundary sitting right in through here, so some storms still going in parts of Oklahoma and Texas, and you can see well offshore here in the Gulf some bigger storms that are still popping there. And if we get into this forecast, let's just take a look at what we've seen over the last 24 hours. Some locally very heavy rainfall amounts in the southern region getting over into parts of Texas and Oklahoma on that lingering boundary. But higher atmospheric pressure has sat here, and it's neat. You can kind of see the flow. Do you see it with me? The storm's kind of all following this trajectory here with the deep upper level low stacked on top of a surface low, spiraling things up like that. And so this is kind of our setup early. This is pumping in the moisture. This is taking it and running it off to the north and east. So we're going to watch where that frontal boundary goes here over the next 24 hours and try to understand if it flattens out or if it digs through the south. And you're going to see that high is rather protective. It's going to allow it to flatten out rather than dig. So over the next 5 days, what are we looking at? Well, this is from the National Blended Model. And where we see, let's just come down here to potential Tropical Cyclone 9. Eventually will become, I think, Tropical Storm Dorian, maybe even stronger. You can see bringing in quite a bit of heavy rainfall into the same region that Dorian just did here. Not nearly the amount of rainfall, at least forecast currently, as we saw from Dorian. But remember, some parts of coastal South Carolina, North Carolina saw over a foot of rainfall from Dorian. And this could be adding more to it here depending on the eventual track. Certainly, if this system gets closer to the United States, expect that rain line to move inland. But outside of that, we do have to watch for some storms today right over here in parts of North Carolina and Virginia. There's a lingering frontal boundary still sitting in this area. It's kind of linked up to this low, which is now moving on off in this direction. So still more showers and storms expected in here. And even though you see much of the rest of our southern region looking dry on the NBM, I want to let you know that daily convection will be popping in this area, which means thunderstorms every day. And you can kind of see that here when I play out for you the latest NAM model. So this is our NAM model run that's going to take us out into early in the morning on Sunday here. And if we just step this back, let's kind of see what we're watching. So you can see the first frontal boundary by midday today sitting right in through here. So storms through Arkansas and Oklahoma. And then throughout the day on Friday, we can continue to notice that the showers and thunderstorms kind of linger in this area. But meanwhile, on the heat of the day, they're going to be popping here across much of the southern region. So it'll be, as you normally expect this time of year, a hit or miss situation, as we largely don't have any major boundaries that are moving, through the area. So getting us into Saturday morning, it's a very similar situation, although now we can start to really see the circulation around what could be called Tropical Storm Umberto at this time. And you can see that the NAM model here is trying to bring it pretty close to Florida. So this will be some of these spiral rain bands around the outside, bringing in quite a bit of heavy rain at times. Meanwhile, our main frontal boundary now stretching along the Appalachian Mountains, getting down here into parts of Mississippi and Alabama. And as it lingers there, that'll be maybe a region where we could get some showers and storms. But this is largely disorganized because that trough lifted rather than dug down into the southern region. So putting it all together, I just want to show you a neat animation here. This is from the GFS. We're looking at all of North America, but I want you to see the major features we're watching. Our storm track is really hanging on to this, northern Pacific, northern North America track here. And just getting us through the weekend, we can see lingering boundary here, bringing in some scattered showers and storms, and the system we just talked about finally curling up. But watch a few things as we get past this, especially out of the tropics. So as I continue to play, We see outside of hit or miss showers and storms through the next 4 to 5 days. That's what we're getting down in much of our southern region. But watch this. As we run the model out, middle of the week next week, there is a potential for a bit of a tropical, I'm going to call it a disturbance, but more tropical moisture that could be working its way into this area. We do have multi-model support for that from both the GFS and the European model. So I want to keep an eye on that early to mid next week. So more showers and thunderstorms here in parts of eastern Texas and Louisiana. But watch as I click play. I want you to keep an eye on those. Remember those 2 tropical systems I said watch coming off of Africa? Well, here comes one of them. See it? And it wants to take it basically on the same path that we've seen now, our last 2 systems, potentially a third. And so we got to keep an eye on this because there's a lot of uncertainty, and I'm only showing you one operational model run, not an ensemble run, nothing like that. But we need to keep a close eye on this because this seems to be a preferred track given the position of our subtropical high sitting out in this area. So I just want to let you know we've got a lot to watch here, and over the weekend, keep a close eye on the National Hurricane Center's website. That's nhc.noaa.gov to see how this all unfolds. Overall, though, when you look at the total amount of rain we're expected to get over the next 15 to 16 days, a lot of this is staying, at or below that 1-inch mark across much of the southern region, with the exception of where the tropical systems may be influencing, the southeast coast. All right, so I just want to bring that up. What are our temperatures going to do? Well, I played this fast, but let's step it back here and see. Our high temperatures today on Friday, again, this is another scorcher. You can see from eastern Texas all the way through the mid-south and getting over into South Carolina, we're going to get deep into the 90s on another hot and humid day. By Saturday, the cool-off begins over here. This is mainly due to cloud cover, but the heat from eastern Texas over to Alabama staying on a lot of mid to upper 90s. This is now getting into Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. See how it kind of spreads to the north there? This is when our big ridge is starting to build here early next week, and underneath it we're going to be seeing quite a bit of heat. So when we have heat like this with open Gulf of Mexico moisture, that's why I told you the models aren't going to see it, but it's going to pop with thunderstorms. A daily event. You know it. I know you folks in the south know exactly what I'm talking about. So be on the lookout for that. Getting out to next Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Again, that northern tier storm track keeping systems suppressed here. The temperature's suppressed here, but our frontal boundary's not able to make it all the way down to the southern states here. So we just stay on the heat, at least for the next 7 to 8 days here. Now to show you what the overall flow is doing, I want you to watch the animation on the right first. This is our jet stream pattern moving forward. We have been continually talking about and watching for the evolution of a western U.S. ridge and a deep Gulf of Alaska trough. So you can still see it setting up there, okay? Now before we get here, take a look at the ridge that builds in early next week. Trough digs in the west, big ridge builds here, and this is going to dominate our temperature patterns for much of next week, which you just saw were quite warm. But the pattern is largely unblocked. You can see systems moving, and we dig into this deep trough on the 23rd here. There's not much of a change, but it builds in a pretty sizable ridge out west and cools us down here over the southeast, which will be nice. But with time, the models are not advertising too much in the way of moving that pattern all the way out to the 27th and 28th. And that's why our temperatures overall look like this. Next 5 days, we're above average across the southern region. Days 6 through 10, the only reason why we see some cooler weather over here is simply due to what we're thinking about the cloud cover from Umberto, plus the potential for other systems to kind of come up toward this direction. But by the time we get out to day 11 to 15, that's when we have the deeper trough here, big ridge building in this direction, and broader troughing in this area, hence maybe a slight cool down, well, at least back down toward normal temperatures. I'll tell you this, the European model is actually much warmer in this area at that time period than the GFS is. The GFS tends to go a little bit more toward higher amplitude, which is why you see much warmer out west and cooler there in the southeast. What I want to finish with here is I want to give you some new long-range guidance we just received from the European model. And what it is, what I'm talking about here is I know we're an open bowl with cotton, and we're quickly trying to get through some harvest efforts in the southern region. So week 3, week 4 guidance here from the European model, I'm just going to draw it on for you. One of the things we are seeing is that the models want to keep this particular area wet. And I'll switch over to red to show you that they want to keep this particular area dry. So this is just big, broad brush, view here of what's going on. So drier conditions overall into week 3, week 4, but I think the tropical patterns what's trying to keep this particular area on the wetter side of things. In terms of temperatures, the flow of the jet stream, they're kind of picking up on more favorable ridging out west. So we'll just put a big upper level high here with a bit more troughing, so an upper level low in that area. And what this tends to do is it tends to keep temperatures much warmer on this side of the country and maybe a slight cooler bias over into this area. But when I say these temperature patterns are slight, I do mean slight. We're not looking as though we're sliding into week 3 and week 4 with any major guidance toward a highly anomalous pattern, which means major deviations from normal. The tropics got a very interesting signal coming out of the Pacific with kind of this quick burst here of some stronger convective activity kind of sliding away toward more neutral conditions. But certainly we're not getting much in the way of advertisement of something big and powerful moving through the Pacific, really adjusting things. So I just wanted to give you that quick update, week 3, week 4. I'll be looking at it over the weekend for you to try to make better sense of our forecast next week. But with that, I think I'll wrap up this southern region forecast. Hope you all have a great weekend. We'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.